Welcome back to Normal Island Live. I'm Curtis Daly, and I tell you what, it's been a while. We won on our show on Wednesday. We didn't have a live show on Monday, so it feels good to be back. And because it's Friday, I'm joined by Sarah Dallal. Sarah, how are you?
It's me. Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. How are you?
I'm ecstatic. It's our show. I love our Fridays, but it feels like it's been such a long time we've been together. So
I know, it's been ages. I think I had this really bad cold and now I'm feeling better, but now it feels good to be back. So yeah, I'm really happy.
Okay, well, let's get on with the show. And this is what we've got coming up for you tonight. The media conflates Jewish people and Israel after Manchester attack. Jeremy Corbyn officially registered as your party leader, and Luke Akehurst denies genocide in wild Owen Jones interview. Now, if you're not currently a subscriber, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. Like the stream, as of course it helps with the algorithm, and we'll be getting to comments at the end as usual. But on to our first story. Yesterday saw one of the most disgusting and violent terrorist attacks in years after two people were killed at a Manchester synagogue on Yom Kippur, the holiest day in Judaism. The suspect was killed on site, yet we have some information about the attacker. BBC Verify has confirmed the authenticity of an image showing the Manchester synagogue suspect Jihad al-Shami. According to the police, the attacker is believed to be the 35-year-old British national of Syrian heritage. Although formal identification has not yet been completed, the individuals are believed to be 53-year-old Adrian Dolby and 66-year-old Melvin Kravitz, both from Crumpsall. Now, the day should have been about the victims and their loved ones, but as I covered yesterday, many pundits from the right decided to weaponise the attack, blaming the left and the government. We also saw the entire media establishment conflate Jewish people and Israel, blaming pro-Palestine marches for the rise in anti-Semitism. Sheila Fogarty said this on LBC.
We can disagree vehemently over the rights, the wrongs, the whys and the wherefores of what's going on in Gaza and in Israel. Of course we can. But none of that, not a bone of it, justifies an attack on a Muslim or an attack on a Jew. But it's very clear to me that elements of, and remember, I'm saying the word elements of, not everybody who was on the marches, I'm saying elements of those marches. Elements of those marches in plain sight were calling for violence against Jews in this country. When you shout repeatedly, globalise the Intifada, you are asking for violence, physical violence against Jews. There are people who would murder others because they don't like what's happening in a far-off land that they have connected those people to. They don't like the opinion of somebody about a particular war. It doesn't ever justify killing somebody on their way to a synagogue or a church or a temple or a mosque, ever, never. And if that's not your starting point, I'm not sure I've got much to say.
Now, globalise the Intifada, globalise the Intifada means resistance to the occupation, right? The word Intifada means shaking off in Arabic and refers to Palestinian popular uprisings. It's worth noting that the first Intifada was peaceful, yet the narrative being set by the media automatically assumes Intifada is violent resistance against Jewish people. That is not the case. Now, we also have Phil Rosenberg, president of the Pro-Israel Board of Deputies of British Jews.
And we heard the Home Secretary saying that she was disappointed to see a protest take place in central London just hours after yesterday's attack. Do you feel there's a degree of insensitivity? You've said there that you support the right to protest, it is people's right, but just what has happened over the past 24 hours? What do you want to say about planned protests?
I think that those sort of protests that happened just after a terrorist incident has affected the Jewish community here in the UK show the rotten core that happens at some parts of the community. Like I say, many people who want to protest on this cause, I think, do so for the right reasons. But those who seek to organise protests when these tragedies happen and then don't think, well, this is a time to pull back, that's a real problem. No, we know that the Palestine Solidarity Campaign organised its first protest over the last 2 years on the 7th of October, while the massacres on that day were still taking place. That's a real problem, and I think the organisers of these events have to ask themselves the question: what are they really here for? If they, I mean, you say insensitive, and that might be right, but I think, this shows, I think, a latent anti-Semitism and even a support for terror, because they don't see it as their responsibility to pull back. And I urge those organisers to pull back. But to the government and police, I think we need to look at whether there are powers now or whether we need powers to make sure that we can take account of these situations. If people aren't going to do the right thing of their own accord, and it's really clear, as you said, the Home Secretary has called for these protests to not go ahead this weekend out of respect, then maybe the government and police need more powers, and that's one of the things that we want to be looking at over the coming days and weeks.
Look, first of all, the marches were already organised because it was protesting what happened on the flotilla. The IDF quite literally kidnaps people from sea. It's international waters, okay? It was a kidnapping, it was pirates. So that was already agreed. But some might say, even if they went out and protested anyway, there's not it's not a contradiction to support Jewish people and support Palestinian people. Now, Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood joined in on the attacks. Shabana Mahmood has told the BBC she was disappointed pro-Palestinian protests went ahead on Thursday in the wake of the terror attack that killed 2 men outside a synagogue in Manchester. I do think that carrying on this way does feel un-British. It feels wrong, she said of protests planned for this week. Demonstrators in central London protest the Israeli naval halting a flotilla carrying aid to Gaza outside of Downing Street on Thursday evening. Now, it's nothing new that pro-Palestine marches are being smeared as hateful, but at a time of rising tensions, it's pretty disgraceful. But that didn't stop former Tory MP Penny Mordaunt claiming that people at the marches were chanting "Death to Jews" without providing any evidence.
There are groups of people who are trying to intimidate a section of our community, and we have to call it out for what it is. And I think that continuing with the protests tonight, which are violent, is one example of that. I mean, nobody that could be out on the streets standing next to somebody or calling themselves for death to the IDF or death to Jews. I mean, what is going on in these people's minds? We just have to recognise it for what it is. But today, I mean, leaving aside the fact that on this most holy day for the Jewish community, this may have been a planned event, I just cannot understand why anyone would want to proceed with a protest of this nature this evening. I'm in no doubt that the people who are out on the streets tonight don't feel the same way that most people in this country feel about the appalling attack that has taken place in Manchester today.
I mean, that's a horrible smear to say those that are protesting do not care about the attack. They do. And remember, Jewish people have been part of the pro-Palestine attacks. But the media never, ever want to talk about that, do they? Of course, anti-Zionist Jews are being completely maligned by the media. They never listen to them. But look, let's be very clear here, right? This is what people at yesterday's march and other marches were protesting. At least 53 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli attacks since dawn across Gaza, as Israel threatened tens of thousands remaining in Gaza City with a forced order to leave and saying it was their last opportunity to flee or face the full force of Israel's assault. 53 Palestinians were killed. No mention, or very little mention, in the media, certainly not on broadcast media. Now, at least there is one politician who was acting sensibly. Green Party leader Zach Polansky said this on Sky News.
Shabana Mahmood said that she was disappointed to see pro-Palestinian marches go ahead after the attack last night across the country. She said that she thought it was dishonourable. She said people could have just stepped back and given communities a day or two to grieve and process what had happened. Does she have a point, do you think?
No, I think Shabana Mahmood is also being deeply irresponsible. There's a lot of it about I think ultimately conflating protests against a genocide in Gaza and ultimately weaponizing that against an anti-Semitic attack on our streets, a terrorist attack, is deeply irresponsible. And again, democratic, non-violent protest is a cornerstone of our democracy. And I think it's worrying when government are increasingly trying to crush down dissent and again using what is a brutal attack that many of us in the Jewish community, in fact all of us in the Jewish community, are feeling very deeply, to try and use that to point at a protest and say people don't have a right to also speak out against the genocide is both conflating issues, it's incoherent, and it's exactly the opposite of what we need from politicians. We need statesmanship in this moment. We need responsibility. We need people to be sensitive about their language, but also recognise that there is complexity to this, and it can't just be about finger pointing at people who are very worried about a genocide.
Now, for all the talk from the Labour Party saying the grown-ups are back in the room, that is one grown-up I'm looking at right there. Okay, if there's one statesman right now, it's Zach Polanski. He's level-headed. He's speaking truth to power. He's cutting through the bullshit. That's what I want to see. Now, tragically, it seems that one of the victims died from a gunshot wound deployed by the Manchester police. The Home Office pathologist has advised that he has provisionally... I'll start that again. The Home Office pathologist has advised that he has provisionally determined that one of the deceased victims would appear to have suffered a wound consistent with a gunshot injury. It is currently believed that the suspect, Jihad al-Shami, was not in possession of a firearm, and the only shots fired were from GMP's authorised firearms officers, as they worked to prevent the offender from entering the synagogue and causing further harm to our Jewish community. It follows, therefore, that subject to further forensic examination, this injury may sadly have been sustained as a tragic and unforeseen consequence of the urgently required action taken by my officers to bring this vicious attack to an end. Now, I thought this tweet from Philip Proudfoot hit the nail on the head. A terrorist targeted a synagogue in Manchester. It's likely he conflated Jewish people with Israel. So, of course, the exact same conflation is now made by British politicians and journalists. Does more anti-Semitism help fight anti-Semitism? Because that's right, conflating Israel and Jewish people is in of itself anti-Semitism. It's so funny when you see the corporate media class attack those that support Palestine as anti-Semitic, when they're literally doing an anti-Semitic trope, right? Jewish people in the state are two different things. But the entire media has conflated Jewish people with Israel and have completely erased voices from the anti-Zionist Jewish community. They are doing what the attacker did, right? Now, the attacker may well have murdered those people for the actions of Israel, but we don't know for sure yet. I want to be clear. But the response from the media is to try and silence those protesting a genocide because they themselves would like to conflate the state of Israel with the community. Now, earlier today, I spoke to Lambeth Councillor Martin Abrams to talk about yesterday's attack. Martin, as a Jewish councillor, how do you feel after yesterday's horrific attack?
Well, thanks, Curtis, and thanks for giving me this space to talk about it. I mean, yesterday's attack was a absolutely disgusting anti-Semitic terrorist attack on a Jewish place of worship, on one of the holiest days in the Jewish calendar, Yom Kippur. So, this has sent shockwaves around Jewish communities across the UK, deeply, deeply distressing.
So you told me you have connections to Manchester. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm from Manchester originally. I was brought up in East Manchester, but a lot of my family lived in and around Prestwich and Bury, and that synagogue was one of my grandma's old synagogues, and it's where my dad used to go for after school childminding when he was growing up in Manchester. So, it is very, very close to home. I know that area very well, and that obviously makes it significantly more personal when something like that happens in an area that you know very well.
So over the last 2 years, obviously since the 7th of October, I mean, have you felt from your perspective a big increase in anti-Semitism?
I mean, the facts speak for themselves, don't they, Curtis? There's been a huge increase in anti-Semitic incidents being reported across the UK, as there's been a significant increase in Islamophobic incidents, and what feels like a significant rise in kind of hatred and intolerance. And I think there's a number of reasons for this. Since the 7th of October attacks, there has been attempts by people that are obviously very supportive of Israel to conflate what is happening, what happened on October the 7th. Sorry, I'm completely losing my train of thought here, Curtis. My brain's slightly gone, so you might have to edit that bit out. I'll start that bit again. So what has happened since October the 7th? There has been a deliberate attempt to conflate any anti-Israeli sentiment with anti-Semitism, and that, in my view, is very dangerous. The role that Israel is playing, which is undoubtedly a genocide happening in Gaza at the moment, in my view, has made Jewish people less safe across the world, because what people like Netanyahu are saying is that any attack on Israel is an attack on all Jews, and that is simply not the case. We are not just one homogenous group. We have a huge diversity of opinions and views. And whilst, a significant portion of Jewish people, will identify as Zionists and will be supportive of Israel, there is also, a significant number of people within the Jewish community, and from what I can see, a growing number of people within the Jewish community that do not identify as Zionists or supportive of Israel, and certainly not supportive of the actions that Israel is taking at the moment in Gaza, and views from people like that, like myself, who does identify as an anti-Zionist Jewish person, are kind of scrubbed out. We are constantly being silenced. Our opinions are never platformed, if ever, on mainstream media or on mainstream media platforms, and all you hear is from representatives like the chief rabbi Ephraim Mervis, who I've seen today has come out with some really horrific stuff about linking yesterday's disgusting anti-Semitic attack with the national demonstrations for Palestine. And I think that is a really, really dangerous road to go down, because it is essentially politicizing yesterday's terrorist attack to try and pursue the political aims to limit the voices of anyone that is anti-genocide or pro-Palestinian, and marginalize those voices. And the chief rabbi calling for national demonstrations against genocide to be shut down by the government and the police is a very dangerous road to go down.
Yeah, you've just alluded to it there. We've seen many right-wing pundits, government officials, the media more widely, they've condemned those protesting for Palestine. So as a Jewish person on the left who is anti-Zionist, how does it make you feel? And I mean, would it be correct to say that anti-Zionist views within the Jewish community have been completely erased?
Well, we're just not being given a voice in mainstream media. But outside of that, I've been on many of the national demonstrations for Palestine. There is an ever increasing Jewish bloc on those demonstrations, Curtis. It started out with dozens of us. It's now hundreds and hundreds of people that join these Jewish blocs on these demonstrations, to basically say loud and clear, the actions of Israel not in our name, to try and break through and smash that deliberate conflation, that kind of says that the actions of Israel are done in every single Jewish person's name, and that is simply not the case. And the dangerous road that goes down, Curtis, is that any anti-Semites see that conflation and then associate, all Jewish people with the actions of Israel, and in their sick and twisted minds, then legitimize acts of political violence. And that's the really concerning thing. We are seeing increasing acts of political violence happening. If you look at what's happening in the US with Charlie Kirk being assassinated, and those Democrat politicians being assassinated, to the terrorist attack yesterday, and the increasing normalization of violence is absolutely terrifying in my view. And you only need to just switch on social media to essentially see that normalization of political violence, because we are essentially watching a live streamed genocide every time we switch on our social media. And when you have that normalization of violence, and then the conflation of anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism, and the like, it is a really, really dangerous mix.
Well, Martin, thank you so much for giving me your time, especially in the circumstances of what happened yesterday. It is disgusting, but I really appreciate your perspective, and I think the mainstream media have ignored many of your voices. So thank you so much for coming on Turn Left today.
Thanks, Curtis.
So that was Martin Abrams, councillor for Lambeth, who quit the Labour Party after being suspended for supporting a ceasefire motion at his local council. I think he's actually in our chat today, confirming that he is part of the Green Party. Now, obviously, since what's happened on Thursday, many pundits and politicians, including Kemi Badenoch, have called for the toning down of the tensions and temperature. What I found incredibly funny, though, is one of the people who jumped on this is Tommy Robinson. Now, Tommy Robinson has pretended to care about anti-Semitism. Do we really believe him? No. We've already pulled out his Israeli connections, but they're not trying to hide it anymore. So this, my producer just sent me this, which is hilarious. The Israeli government has invited far-right activist Tommy Robinson, real name Stephen Yaxley Lennon, to Israel for being a true friend of the Jewish people. So that is Tommy Robinson being invited to Israel, currently committing a genocide, because apparently he's a true friend to Jewish people and not a true friend to Israel. So, we'll leave that with you to make your mind up. Sarah, let me ask you, what are your thoughts about the media response from this truly terrible attack?
Well, this attack was a horrifying and terrible act of anti-Semitic terror, and I think we have to start off by acknowledging that. But I think what's equally horrifying is how quickly the media and those that surround it have turned something that where people should be grieving into some sort of political weapon. And I think in doing so, they repeated the very logic of the attacker. The attacker is obviously likely to have targeted Jewish people because he conflated Jewish people with the Israeli state, like Polanski said, and rightfully so. And I think they're doing the exact same thing. They've turned immediately to pro-Palestinian marches as if people protesting a foreign government's war crimes were responsible for anti-Semitic violence in Britain. And I think that's sloppy, and it's dangerous propaganda, and it's exactly what we're trying to fight against when it comes to anti-Semitism in this country. And the thing is that Jewish communities are not homogenous, and I'm sick and tired of people just throwing them all into one category. They're not spokespeople for Israel, and many Jewish people are actually on the front lines of anti-Zionist activism. You know, you've got groups like Jewish Voice for Peace or Namud in Britain, and they've been screaming from the rooftops like, this is not in our name, we don't stand with it, we don't want to be a part of it, and we disagree with it. And yet those voices are completely like scrubbed out of the broadcast cycle. And you have to think why, and it's because they shatter the establishment narrative. They prove that opposing Israel's war crimes is not anti-Semitic, that Jews and Palestinians are natural allies in resisting oppression, and the media can't allow that, so they're going to erase them in the process. And when politicians like Penny or pundits like Fogarty like spread these unverified claims, like protesters chanting death to Jews without a shred of evidence, they're doing something incredibly reckless. And I can't believe that they're continuing on with that. They're smearing tens of thousands of ordinary people who are exercising their democratic right to protest, and they're inciting suspicion between Muslims and Jewish people and the wider public. So they're actually creating more divide, and that doesn't protect Jewish community, doesn't protect Jewish people. You're actually making victims of this heinous crime a footnote, and you're isolating them. And I think it paints a target on their back, because you're going to be reinforcing that lie that all Jewish people are responsible for Israel's actions, and that lie is the lifeblood of anti-Semitism. So I think I'd flip it. Like, do we blame all Catholics for the IRA? Do we blame all Brits for the Iraq War? Like, of course not. So why is it acceptable to hold Jewish people collectively responsible for Israel? Obviously, it isn't. And I think it's anti-Semitism sort of dressed up in this, like, well, I'm defending Jewish people. Now, look now, like, Tommy Robinson's now being commended for defending Jewish people, but like, no, you're defending Israel. And the media is utterly complicit in spreading that logic. And I think that's completely unforgivable. And I think what we should be doing is actually standing against anti-Semitism together and Islamophobia. But the establishment likes to pit those communities against one another. They weaponize Jewish pain to silence Palestinian solidarity, and they turn grief into some tool of censorship.
I mean, hate begets hate, violence begets violence, and the sort of response from the mainstream media and the right-wing pundits, which is to pretty much say, "Oh, it's the fault of the left, it's the fault of Muslims and stuff." You're not. You're only going to just create more division, as you said, because now people are going to be looking at Muslims, right? Not that this is the first time. I mean, for decades we've seen the demonization of Muslims, but I just find it so funny that people like Tommy Robinson are so concerned about anti-Semitism when it's been his entire career to be racist and bigoted towards minorities. I mean, someone like Lawrence Fox, who's a deplorable person, but suddenly cares about anti-Semitism. I mean, people can see it transparently for what it is, but these people do not care about anti-Semitism or Jewish people. Usually, there's a link between Israel, and even if there isn't a financial link between Israel, there's a lot of people on the right and far right who like Israel because they like ethno-nationalism. They want to import their apartheid policy over here. You know, the British people, or Britain for the white people. That's what they see. So a lot of them are praising Israel because of that. But yeah, much agree with you. But it is 8:10, so we're going to move on to our second story. Now, according to the Electoral Commission, Jeremy Corbyn has been registered as the official leader of your party, along with Adnan Hussein as nominating officer. As you can see, your party was registered on the 30th of September. Then at the bottom, Jeremy registered as leader, Adnan nominating officer, and Dr. Marion Roberts as treasurer. Now, some have taken to Twitter to show their concern. Max Shanley said this: according to the Electoral Commission, Jeremy Corbyn is officially leader of your party. No nominations, no votes, nothing. The ascension of King Corbyn has begun. The founding conference of your party is shaping up to be nothing more than a coronation. He then said, and before anyone else says the Electoral Commission requires a statutory leader, the party won't fully exist till at least November. There was no need to register yet beyond securing the name, a name that will likely not be the one finally adopted. Nicola James responded, and she said, registration isn't just securing the name. Can we get the next graphic up? Graphic 9, is that there? I don't think so. If we go to graphic 10, let's try that one. Sorry, just want to... have we got graphic 10 up? Yes. Yep, the next one. Sorry, go to the next one again. So, okay, right. Let's keep that one on screen. Registration isn't just securing the name; it's a long legal process, constitution, financial scheme, 3 officers, compliance checks. That takes weeks to months. If left until November, the party wouldn't have been ready to contest elections under its name and logo. Now they will be able to update the EC straight after conference with the leadership and name members choose. Updating is far quicker than the initial registration. Max Shanley came back and said this. The party doesn't have a constitution yet, though. That's a matter for the founding conference, and the party's name is going to be subject to an all-member vote before the conference. If it has a constitution already, who wrote it, who voted for it, why hasn't it been published? And why did they have the power to do so without mass participation in a supposedly democratic organisation? Now, according to the Electoral Commission, it is true that in order to register a party, there must be a leader, treasurer, and nominating officer. I mean, I guess my question is, why those individuals? Now, I kind of get why Jeremy would be registered as leader for now. But for Adnan, I mean, would it not make sense to have Zara registered there? And look, I suppose if I'm being kind, there's obviously still tension between the two. And maybe it was just simply easier to register these people to get on with the Electoral Commission application. Now, according to Corbyn, he stated that the MPs are only there to facilitate the party to conference and the democratic procedure will take place. Sarah, do you think this is something to be concerned about, or do you think that we should just hold our judgment until after conference?
Yeah, good question. I do think registering Corbyn. Oh my God, can I not talk? It's Friday. Registering Corbyn as leader on the Electoral Commission forms without a vote does raise a few eyebrows. Because it kind of makes it look like a coronation. But I think the difference is there are legal hoops to jump through. Like, you can't register a party without a named leader. Fine. So they put Corbyn's name down as the obvious figurehead. That on paper is just a technicality, but I think, and this is crucial, like, optics matter. And if your entire project is about building a grassroots member-led alternative or initiative, then even the appearance of like backroom deals and like coronations undermines that trust that you're trying to build with something that is democratically led. People on the left are traumatized from Labour's, internal stitch-ups and the bureaucratic betrayals. They are hypersensitive to anything that smells like top-down control, and rightly so. So I think the question is like, will they actually prove that this was a procedural step, or will they turn it into some like fait accompli? And I think if the conference in November is genuinely democratic, then it would be, one member, one vote, open contest for leadership and constitution. Then this moment kind of would become a bit of a footnote. But if it turns out that the constitution was quietly stitched together by a handful of insiders, and if members don't actually get the final say, then I think this whole project just collapses on its face before it even begins. And we can even talk about like Adnan Hussein, like his appointment over Zara Sultana as nominating officer is not just weird optics, but I think it kind of reeks of internal power play, in my opinion. I think Zara was the spark that lit that fire that got your party going, and her omission from the official paperwork is pretty glaring. And I think if this is actually about unity, then why is one of the most popular young MPs in the country being sidelined? And I don't know, you can criticize me on this, but I do feel like it's factional maneuvering. I'm kind of side-eyeing your party now. So my answer to that question would be like, this could go either way. If the founding conference is transparent and democratic and genuinely empowers members, then registering Jeremy was probably just like an admin job. But if it isn't, and if it's stitched up, then the left will have built a house on like literal sand, and people won't join a new party just to relive the worst of Labour's culture. Like, I do think this will be make or break. I think if your party keeps repeating this arrogance and the secrecy of the Labour machine, I think it will die. And I'm relating it to Labour because I want them to be distinctive from Labour, but I don't feel like they are being that distinctive from Labour at this point. I think if it keeps its promise of member-led democracy, then it has a chance. But right now, I think I'm just cautiously watching. But the leadership kind of needs to know that we're not going to accept coronations, not after everything we've been through.
I mean, I can forgive, as I said before, I can kind of forgive when it's Jeremy Corbyn in the registered as leader, because, of course, as we know, Jeremy Corbyn, Zara Sultana are supposedly the co-leaders for now, right? I kind of get that. But my question is, why is Adnan there? You know, I mean, obviously, them two are very close. They've done a lot of rallies together. But, like, you can't help but wonder if this is another, like, factual manoeuvring. I mean, look, this is what we do know. There are factions, okay? We know that Zara and Jeremy are on two different factions. That is just true, okay? That's not really speculation. I think we all know that. We all know that either side is trying to play a factional game, and this could be another one. Now, maybe the plan from the start was to register this party, have Jeremy and Adnan just there, but literally only for, you know, temporary reasons, right? And then facilitate the conference. But then surely that the party would have been registered ages ago. Why now? So I do think that's a little bit strange. But I mean, for me, I'm still kind of reserving my judgment until conference, because at the end of the day, that's where the democratic structures are supposed to be, or supposed to be formed. And if there's no democratic structures after the conference, then I'm gonna not hold back, should I say? My next question for you though is, you know, we've heard no word of the amount of members your party has had after Jeremy Corbyn announced his second membership portal. Now, when Zara initially did hers, she revealed 20,000 paid members in a matter of hours, which is extremely impressive, by the way. But this time, it's been weeks, and we've heard nothing. So, look, do you think this is due to the two portals being merged, and maybe it's a case of technical issues behind the scenes? Or do you think the number of people who signed up under Jeremy Corbyn is lower than expected, and they're maybe a little bit embarrassed?
It's a good question. I think if membership had exploded under Corbyn's launch, then we probably would have heard about it. They always want to smear Corbyn, right? They won't hold back when it comes to that. I think silence just usually means that the numbers aren't as impressive as expected. And that matters because momentum is everything in a new party. And yeah, there have been technical issues like merging these databases and refunding and reprocessing thousands of memberships from Zara's launch and avoiding like these duplicates. But that takes time. But I think the bigger problem is actually political. Like the leadership has kind of fumbled the bag. Zara's launch showed raw momentum. That's what I think. Like when you say those numbers, 20,000 people like throwing down 55 quid in a matter of hours, that's not just impressive, that's like unprecedented for a startup party that doesn't have very many things going for it at the moment. But then Jeremy's camp told them to cancel, the momentum was squandered, and then when the official portal opens, people were kind of just confused, and obviously some were rightfully frustrated, and then the energy just wasn't the same. I think even if the combined membership today is 25 to 30,000 people, that's still huge by British standards, but perception is everything. Like the first wave felt like a really immense movement, and the second wave feels like damage control, and I do think that's a failure politically. And people don't join new parties because of admin. Like they join because of fire, they join because they want a change and because they believe it's different and it's urgent and it's unstoppable. But right now I don't feel like your party has proven that. I think it's still wrapped up in these internal tensions, and it's struggling to get away from that, and these half messages, and now this like strategic silence on matters. And I don't think you can inspire or mobilize a country if you can't even inspire your own base to re-register. So yeah, the numbers are probably lower than hoped, and yes, they're probably holding back because they don't want headlines about stalling, but the fix isn't to hide. I think it's to lead. Like give people a constitution that they can shape and give them a really bloody bold platform to do it. Give them clarity, because that's something that we haven't had as people in this country, and then watch that membership grow again. Because if it all ends up being this project managed from the top, then those tens of thousands of people will just melt away, and they'll think that you're just another party that wants to score political points for the sake of scoring political points. And I think if it's genuinely grassroots, then those numbers could explode, but time is short, and I think the silence isn't very reassuring.
If I'm completely honest, I feel like if the numbers were huge, they wouldn't keep it secret. And I imagine if it's 30, 40, 50,000, would they say, let's keep this quiet? No, they're going to want to say, look at the amount of people that are signed up. And that would build momentum. So I I do think that there was probably some trust that was lost from original members, and maybe the second wave didn't garner so much. But I agree. Before we move on to our last story, I just want to remind our viewers that we are 5 volunteers keeping this ship going. We do this around our paid jobs, but our goal is to become full-time, meaning we can increase our content, be far more ambitious, and build a sustainable left-wing alternative. Your help has made so much difference already, from equipment to covering rallies and interviews. Your support means everything. Now, we rely on small donations, so if you want to be part of a media organisation that seeks to destroy the oligarchs, then please head over to turnleftmedia.co.uk/supports. There you can support us monthly on Patreon, or there is another link for a one-time contribution. You can also become a YouTube member for just 99p. Thank you. But on to our final story of the night. Owen Jones went to the Labour Party conference and, as usual, did a far superior job than the mainstream media in holding MPs to account. One particular interviewer was doing the rounds, Luke Akehurst. If you can get up video 5.
I don't accept the G word being used even now. And nor does the British government.
Even though a consensus of genocide scholars has said this is genocide.
The opinions of some people, not the opinion of the British government.
Well, who do you think we should defer to more?
The British government. I'm a Labour fucking MP. I'm going to...
over genocide scholars?
Yeah,
like
we should listen to our own government's legal analysis.
Right. So when Yoav Gallant said we're cutting off all food and water because we're fighting human animals, you didn't think that was genocidal?
No. I disagree with... I think that many of the things that Israel has done have not even helped Israel. I think they've been... The behaviour has been daft in a lot of circumstances. It's been reprehensible in some circumstances. I do not think it crosses the bar.
How would you describe...
genocide.
Daft. Oh, daft. I mean, I think famine, ethnic cleansing, and slaughter is a little bit more than daft. But we continue.
How would you describe deliberately shooting children in the head and the chest? How would you describe that?
I'm just not sure I believe that anyone has deliberately done that.
So why have dozens of US-based medics reported, having served in Gaza, that Palestinian children have been shot in the head and the chest deliberately by Israeli snipers?
I don't believe that that's happened.
So why are they saying it?
I don't know.
Why? So you know better than genocide scholars and medical experts, medics who served in Gaza?
Well, I know what I believe.
But it's not based on any facts, is it?
How come I'm in the same point of assessment as the British government is?
The British government is legally implicated in the crimes of trying to...
So now we get into... they're all genocidal, the British government...
But if you arm a genocide, it makes you complicit. And why did the internet...
Arm a genocide?
I mean, you can see he was really stuck for words there. I mean, for the record, right? If you are arming Israel, you are complicit. If you're making excuses for them, you are complicit. If you refuse to call a genocide, you are complicit. Luke, you are complicit. Let's go back for just one more.
We stopped arms exports in the summer of last year.
No, we don't. We provide crucial components for F-35 jets, and I'm sure you know about the Arms Trade Treaty of 2014. If you provide components for F-35 jets implicated in war crimes or genocide, then you are legally complicit. Do you know that?
No, I don't. Okay, I think we've probably exhausted it. I mean, you're not going to get the answers you want.
Well, I know, but you're a pro-Israel lobbyist. It seems like you don't actually know what you're talking about at all, and you've been very... This is your subject.
No, you've got a set of opinions, I've got a different set of opinions.
But you don't have any facts, that's the problem. Do you accept Israel have committed war crimes? Any war crimes?
I don't know. I don't have enough information to make that judgment, and it's not me that...
So they wiped Gaza from the face of the earth. They've killed tens of thousands of children, very plausibly. They've attacked every single hospital, every single healthcare system, and you don't think they've committed any war crimes?
No, I don't know which things fall into those categories. So I don't know where exactly the line is drawn.
He's deliberately starving people a war crime.
I think you're telling me it is.
But do you know?
I don't even know if they can be accused of that.
Well, even though they said they were, I mean, in March this year, they said they're not letting anything into Gaza, and they did that.
Yeah, but I disagree with them doing that. That was
is it a war crime?
Wrong thing to do.
No, it's not about is it wrong morally. Is it legally wrong to do that?
I don't know. I'm not an expert in international law.
What do you know about?
Not international law.
So even though your main job was being a pro-Israel lobbyist, which was all about international relations for years, how long did you work as a pro-Israel lobbyist?
13 years, I think.
13 years. That was your job before becoming an MP, and you don't know anything about anything.
Yeah, I'm just thick, really. Just completely
But I don't think
thick.
you are. I don't think you are, and that's why, you know, you're a member of parliament now, because you got parachuted into a sea you had no connection to by your friends on the National Executive Committee.
I think I'm gonna have a brain aneurysm. I love that at the end of Owen though. He's like, "That's why you're on the NEC, because it was a stitch up." Thoroughly destroyed there. But Luke Nukem, right? Luke the Nuke, just a vile individual. I mean, he has to play stupid, by the way, because he can't be honest. He knows international law. He knows Israel has violated it on multiple occasions. He doesn't care, right? He doesn't care about dead Palestinians, dead Palestinian babies, and he doesn't care. But this isn't surprising from Labour's chief Israel apologist. It is also not surprising that following on from this, Owen Jones had his conference pass rescinded. I'm writing to let you know that we've had to make the difficult decision to cancel your conference pass with immediate effect following complaints we have received about your conduct. Why have we taken this action? We have a responsibility to safeguard all our delegates, staff, volunteers, and visitors, and to maintain a safe and welcoming environment for everyone at conference. After careful consideration, we've concluded that we cannot continue your attendance while ensuring we meet our safeguarding obligations to all attendees. So they're saying that Owen Jones poses a threat. I mean that's true. He threatens to expose MPs' bullshit. Now, Emily Thornberry, who represents the constituency Jones lives in, accused him of misogyny.
I didn't see any men being chased by Owen Jones. I didn't see any men with 2 cameras being chased. And I mean, I just think there is an element of misogyny in all of this sometimes. Sorry, but I mean, I do genuinely think that. And if I had seen Owen again, I would have asked him how many men he'd done that to.
I mean, look, I think that's pretty appalling to weaponize sexism, because he dares to ask questions on genocide like, you know, corporate hacks that Labour Party conference won't do. And by the way, I've seen tons of videos of him chasing around men at conference, so it's just a complete lie. It's also worth pointing out that Navarra's Rivka Brown and Matthew Talbot have been barred too. The crime being left-wing. Sarah, that was one wild interview with Luke Akehurst. I mean, I don't know how he can just ignore the UN along with scholars on genocide, calling it a difference of opinion. What are your thoughts on that?
What are my thoughts? Luke is thick. Luke Akehurst is thick, and he is a disgrace. Him calling himself thick, I'm like, say it with conviction next time, because you are a thicko. Like, let's just call it what it is. He went on camera and was like, I don't want to say the G word. Like, fucking say it. It's genocide. But like, Palestinians are being slaughtered in their tens of thousands, and you are afraid to say that it's genocide. Like, he smirked and he was shrugging and he was calling it a difference of opinion. Like, it's not even a debate. Families are literally being buried under rubble. Like, it's not even that it's just morally bankrupt. Like, it is complicity, like you said, and it's not a matter of semantics either. Like, the world's leading genocide scholars have voted overwhelmingly that what Israel's doing in Gaza is genocide. Entire neighborhoods are being flattened, they're being wiped off the map. Food, water, and medicine are being deliberately cut off. Famine is being used as a weapon. Hospitals are being bombed. Children are being starved. None of that should sit easily with anyone. I don't even know why this is a topic for debate. Like, so that's not a difference of opinion, Luke. Like, that is a genocide by every legal definition. I think for Akehurst to dismiss it, to give Israeli political cover to basically keep killing, to keep doing what you're doing, and he knows it, and Labour knows it, and what does Labour do in response? Do they distance themselves from his grotesque comments? No, they actually just enable it. They punish the journalist who exposes him, like Owen Jones getting his conference pass revoked, and Emily Thornberry smearing him as a misogynist. Like, what a fucking reach! You guys are really trying, and that tells you everything about Labour today and about people who make excuses for what's happening in Palestine and in Gaza. They'll protect a genocide apologist on their NEC, but they'll ban and slander a journalist who just asks tough questions, which I don't think are relatively that tough. Like, that's not safeguarding. That's just censorship. That's authoritarianism. Like, if you are truly one to safeguard, why don't you safeguard the children who are being starved by fucking Zionists, like an awful regime? So if we're going to be super frank here, this is actually bigger than Owen. I'm glad that Owen did bring this to light, but Labour is sending a real message here. Like, if you call genocide by its name, then you are the problem. And they just want people to be silent. They want complicity. And if you won't play along, then you'll be smeared and excluded from our spaces. And I think that's how parties rot from within. They've already been rotten from the start. But history will not be kind to the likes of Akehurst or to the Labour leadership that enables him. They will be remembered as those people who chose political expediency over truth and who denied genocide in real time. And people like Owen, you know, the independent journalists that actually tried to interrogate those in Labour and in government or politicians, will be remembered for the ones who actually stood up and said, like, enough is enough, and learn your fucking facts when I come and talk to you about it. So I think, you know, just to summarize, I think my thoughts are that Akehurst is shameful. Labour's response is shameful, and the left needs to stop pulling punches. I think if you arm Israel, you're complicit, and if you deny genocide, you're complicit.
I mean, he's one of the worst as well. I find it that's what we call him, Luke Nukem, right? He was the former director of We Believe in Israel, right? He was quite literally an agent on the Israeli state. It's wild to me that he was even allowed to be inside a British political party, because he shows more fealty to Israel. He does. Like, that is pretty much what he exists for. I find it also funny that Matthew Talbot, who's not even on the radical left, he's just kind of like a centre-left journalist. They banned him. Incredible that Keir Starmer called out Nigel Farage because Reform Party banned a particular local news outlet, saying this is really bad for democracy. And there you are, banning Owen Jones, Matthew Talbot, Rivka Brown, and others. It's wild. I mean, the safeguarding thing, they're trying to safeguard their reputation, but there's no reputation to save left. So it's wild to me.
Irony. That's the irony. What are you actually trying to safeguard at this point? Because all you're safeguarding is yourselves, or attempting to do so, but you're already in the fucking trenches. Like, Labour's on the wrong side of everything right now. They have crossed every single moral line that exists. They are so fucking corrupt, and everyone who is like them, everyone who agrees with them, people who are on different parties and agree with the fact that genocide is not something we should be talking about, that it's not a genocide at all, you are part of the problem. So yeah, this whole like, oh, we're trying to safeguard the people that are at this conference, mate, leave us alone. I'm pissed off. I laughed out loud. Luke looking like that actual idiot.
Okay, I think it's time to go on to our comments. Let's bring in Lewis. Lewis, how are we?
I'm all right. How are you guys? I'd like to apologise for some of the bad producing that you guys saw earlier today.
Yeah, it was terrible.
It's my own fault. I forgot to set my devices to away, and everyone keeps trying to call me. So I was just like
so popular,
a little bit flustered. Yeah. I'm just so popular. But great show so far. I love all the Luke hate. I just don't get why he's so red. Is it because he spends so much time in Tel Aviv? I have no idea. But we did have some lovely and fun comments today. But let's go to our lovely members and super chats today. So we had 3 new members join today. We've got Vegan Barnsley. Barnsley from Yorkshire. That's not cultural appropriation. And we've got Lindiana Jones as new member.
Great name.
That's a great name.
That's genius. Love it.
And Terry Reagan. Welcome. We got a lovely £20 donation from Coops.
Oh, thanks.
Just because
Kate.
it's Friday and chat mods show is great all week, but do we have an update on the crews of the flotilla? Have they been released? I actually do have an update about this. So I've just been checking both Middle East Eye and Israeli media. So according to Ben Gvir, they got put in the same prisons as terrorists, but they've started deporting they've started the deportations of some of the members of the flotilla. Obviously, I don't know if anybody saw, but obviously overnight that last ship that was kind of astray obviously did get finally captured and boarded, and they have started deporting people. But we still need to keep bringing attention to the story and the news, because if you remember the last time that this happened, they did treat some people very differently. There was one of the activists, I cannot remember his name, and I do apologize, but all I remember that he was a black man, and he was accusing the Israeli state of actually torturing him, putting him in terrible conditions, and not treating him very well. He seemed to have the worst treatment out of all of the activists.
Yeah, I'm really worried for Kieran Andrea, because he's half Palestinian, and he might be, I guess, lucky because he's a journalist of Novara, would be known, but I did really worry. There is another flotilla, the Conscience boat, from the Freedom Flotilla Coalition. So there's another one going out there again. I don't know how many boats are surrounding this flotilla, but we got to send out 200, 300, because 300, they can't stop them all, surely.
Yeah.
I think it's also interesting because the prison that they're being kept in as well at the moment, while they're all being deported, is one of the prisons that's in control of Ben Gvir, who a few weeks ago the courts ruled, the Israeli High Court ruled that the people and the prisoners were not receiving enough sustenance to be what is acceptable at human levels, which is a nice way of saying that people were essentially being starved. Palestinians were being starved. So just to throw that out there. But thank you so much as well, Coops, for the question, the donation, and giving us an opportunity to talk about it even further. And we will continue covering it as much as we can, and we'll see where we're at by Monday, I guess. Okay, coming on to some actual comments from the team. I'm going to go backwards. We didn't actually mention this all today, but I just thought it was just a fun comment to bring up, because people were discussing Tony Blair in Gaza. So Specs put, use his proper name, Tony Blair, the Emir of Gaza. Oh, like, what timeline are we living in, guys?
Tony just needs
bad
to
timeline.
leave us alone. Like, why is he even popping up? Like,
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I saw a clip of a Labour member at conference, and they asked him about Tony Blair. So he's got experience in the Middle East. It was his reason. Experience in the Middle East? Yes, we know he's got experience in the Middle East. Helping kill 500,000 people.
That's one way of putting it. That's one way of putting it.
That's like saying Epstein's got work experience in a spa. Like, yeah,
exactly.
No, thank you. Anyway, yeah, I don't understand what timeline we're living in. It is just all completely and utterly messed up in every single way. And I was listening to, I don't think, was it the news agents or newscast or something the other day? They basically said that the British government had no idea. Like, they had no clue that this was going on in the background. And it's like, it's weird when you just emphasize the fact that this is a former prime minister, former Middle East envoy in the UK, for the UK, doing a backroom deal with the US president. It's just everything. It's just so many levels of weird. In response to Luke Akehurst and Owen Jones, Incodmoin? Sorry. A difference of opinion is pizza toppings, not a fucking genocide.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. It's like, even on social media, people are still debating whether what Israel is doing is a genocide. I'm like, fucking wake up. Wake up. This is not even supposed to be a debate. Like, can we just please protect Palestinian people and Palestinian sovereignty?
Well, I mean, the reason why Nuke Akehurst, Luke, whatever.
Nukem.
The reason why he said it's a difference of opinion is because he knew the facts weren't on his side, and he couldn't try and argue the facts. So a sort of get out of jail clause, which obviously still makes you look incredibly silly. It's like, look, you've got all these facts, but I just have a different opinion, and you can't really argue against that. And I mean, you can say you're a fucking idiot, right? And you look stupid, but you can be like, it's just not my opinion. That's because he didn't know what to say. He was embarrassed. He wanted the interview to end. That's kind of it, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what's funny as well with Luke and the We Believe in Israel, whose emails I still receive because I like to keep an eye on them, is that the new director, what's her name? Something Sherez, Catherine Sherez Packham or something like that. Her name is. She's literally being accused of being an Israeli spy.
Kind of the point, isn't it? Of them?
She told this story about how she infiltrated the Iranian regime, met the Ayatollah, and was monitoring Jewish groups in Iran. But this wasn't on the behalf of anybody. She wasn't collecting intelligence. She was just doing it for the fun of it, apparently, because she doesn't actually explain why she was doing this. And that's now the replacement to Luke Akers as the director of We Believe in Israel. You can't make this stuff up, guys.
Can't make it up.
Jamie put, "You're only allowed to ask politicians easy questions."
Yeah, they can't handle. Well, the thing is, though, it's like what you were saying, Curtis. Like they just try to say things that won't land them in trouble, but there actually is. This will still land you in trouble with groups of people who actually do confront facts. But yeah, they want to protect their jobs.
I saw a Twitter interaction with Luke Akers. It was under the clip of Owen Jones. And people were like, "Oh, would you rather GB News there questioning you?" And he was like, "Yes." I mean, it's true then, because GB News wouldn't have questioned him on Israel. They would have said, "Why aren't you anti-immigration enough?" And it's easy for them because they can say, "We'll do more." But yeah, he was like, "I wish I was. It would have been better if I was interviewed by GB News." This is just
because there's no challenge. Because
shit, exactly. The level of shit we have in the Labour Party.
Yeah, I was on top of obviously other people who had press passes suspended or not accepted, declassified. Obviously, wrote up their article a few days ago about this too. How in the space of 2 days they got denied a parliamentary pass, and when they did a freedom of information request, at first they were told, "Oh, too many passes have been given out to too many journalists." They did a freedom of information request, and then they found out that 3 more people had been given passes since theirs got denied. And then they basically just found out, "Oh yeah, like they just don't like declassified because of their stances." And then they got denied a pass to the Labour conference too. And I was talking about it the other day about how people need to understand that the mainstream media in this country will not ask politicians the hardest questions. They will not keep drilling them. They'll occasionally go in a little bit harder here and there, and they've all got their biases and stuff. But I remember Chris Mason specifically talking about this months ago, like you have to maintain a relationship with the government. And this kind of goes back into kind of what Trump's been doing, and even what Reform have been doing, right, with that local council where they punish journalists who go after them. Yeah. And that's what they're scared of. This is why the mainstream media, from all the big ones, will not go hard on the government, because they want that relationship, they want that access.
I spoke to Hilary Shan. She is part of the We Deserve Better campaign. Of course, they coordinated before the last general election to try and get Greens and Independents elected, right? And I spoke to her, and she told me she wouldn't disclose who the journalist is, a Guardian journalist. And this Guardian journalist told her, "We are specifically going easy on Keir Starmer because we know he's going to win and we want access." Now, of course, we know that from the outside, but it's different when you hear someone literally say that to you. So this is how it works. Client journalists want access, so they go easy on their questions. Now, of course, for them, they feel like it's a catch-22, right? Do real journalistic practice and get shut out, or be soft and get allowed in. I say, fuck the access, right? Do proper journalism, and political parties will then think, "Oh, well, actually, because they've all started doing journalism, we actually have no one on the inside." And you're going to get political parties trying to court the media to bring them in, right? If all these client journalists stood up and got a backbone and decided to ask them tough questions, yes, short term, the Labour Party or whoever will give no one access, but then they'll find, actually, we've got no journalist who's willing to speak to us, or we can do a briefing to them. It goes both ways. The party and governments do also need journalists willing to, give them a bit of a briefing as well. So I think all of them just stand up, grow a fucking backbone, do real journalism like they're fucking paid for, To be fair, I don't want them to do proper journalism because I want us to replace them anyway.
Yeah, facts. That's what I'm saying.
We're
We
coming
will
for the
do
mainstream
proper
media.
journalism.
We're coming for you.
By the way, I just, because while I was checking comments, I saw this update pop up from the Middle East Eye just regarding flotilla, because people did ask the question. So 9 Gaza-bound aid boats have set sail from Italy's Catania shortly after Israel forces intercepted the last remaining vessel from the first wave of the global summered flotilla. The second wave was initially comprised of 8 boats, but was subsequently joined by the Conscience, a separate mission carrying 90 paramedics and journalists, and it's the largest vessel to so far participate in any flotilla. So that's the latest update on the new ones. But again, it'll be a situation where it'll probably be a little while until they get there, and they might be joined by more on the way. Somebody asked this question. I actually don't know the answer to it, Curtis, but this might be something for you, because people were just curious when you were discussing Jeremy's new party. Are Momentum still supporting Labour?
Yes, Momentum are still supporting Labour. Momentum are just sending out emails, and pretty much they do the John McDonnell kind of letter, which is, look, the government's really, really bad. Come sign up and support us, and we're going to try and fight from within. Momentum is a byproduct of the Labour Party. It wouldn't really be an organisation outside of it. So it's the Momentum are the fragments of the stay and fight people, but of course there's no stay and fight people there anymore. They are completely irrelevant. They just ignore them. I mean, they should have left a long time ago. They were born out of the Corbyn project, right? And it died with the Corbyn project. So even if there were many leftists still inside the Labour Party, I don't think they would have been particularly that effective because they sort of came out of the Corbyn project. But yes, they still are very much supporting Labour. They wouldn't be an organisation outside the party. They're barely an organisation now.
Moving on to Legala Deville. Sultana should just join the Greens. What do you guys think?
It's something I've said. I've said it, but I don't know. I don't know if it will ever happen. I think it would almost be a spit in the face of your party and Corbyn if she just went, hey, see you later, I'm going to the Greens. So I don't know. I don't think it's likely anytime soon anyway.
I find this a difficult one. I don't think it's easy as just saying join the Greens, because the way I see it is I do think, and I hope I'm proved wrong because I'm so impressed by Zach Polansky and his leadership, is I think there is a ceiling for the Green Party. In fact, polling's kind of showing that. There was a recent poll that shows your party, obviously their first poll had them on 15%. That was obviously around the Buzz. That Buzz has kind of gone down. They've gone down to 6%, right? And the Greens in this same poll, I believe, are on 10%. Yet that 6% gets your party 20 seats. The 10% gives the Greens between 4 and 6 seats. So either staying the same or going up a little bit. There is a constituency of people who probably can't be reached by the Green Party, but could be reached by your party. So even though I think we know that your party has a lot of problems, even though we're kind of skeptical about whether this is actually going to be a fully democratic party, I think that figures like Zara Sultana, who I think are still popular, may still actually need to be in this project, because if she joins the party, if Jeremy Corbyn joins the party as well, the Green Party, you're kind of putting all your eggs in one basket. Now, of course, again, I understand that like the Greens are a professional operation. They're a democratic party. They're getting on with things, whereas your party is kind of embarrassing the left. Once again, I say that I don't think the Greens can reach everyone. And I think a your party Green pact is far more viable. Therefore, I want to see popular people, talented people still attached to your party. Even after conference, right, it's not the fully democratic party we want. It still may need to be a project that has to be supported. Doesn't mean you have to vote for them, by the way, right? You know, especially with figures like Adnan Hussein, you know, I'm a social progressive as well, right? So come the next election, especially in Leeds where I live, Leeds Central, the Greens have a good shot of winning, right? So my vote is almost guaranteed to go to the Greens. But I don't think it means that we should kind of be happy or laugh at the prospect of your party disintegrating, because I think that your party can get more seats on a lower vote share than the Greens. So these two parties need to work together for a electoral left-wing bloc in Parliament. Because if the left can get 60 seats in Parliament, that is significant. I don't know if the Greens can get 60 seats alone, but this, with your party, if it gets its act together, even if it's not the perfect grassroots Democratic Party we want, I still would rather even a top-down your party get 40 seats and take it away from Reform, Labour, the Conservatives, because all the others are top-down parties too, if you kind of see what I mean. So it's messy, but we kind of have to embrace the messiness because this is all we have at the moment.
That's a good point.
Just to kind of add to two more stories, but 2 breaking news updates just in the last 2 minutes. So regarding Gaza, apparently Hamas have submitted their response to Trump on the police plan, but we don't know what it is. And the police have just released further information on the Manchester attack yesterday. They've now arrested 3 more people. And they've said that the initial assessment is it was motivated by extreme Islamic ideology.
Fuck. It's just not looking
I think
good.
that's kind of what we expect.
They said, but they've said may and not confirmed. So it's interesting because it means they still haven't found all the information that they need and want on this person. But the fact that they've arrested 6 people so far is quite interesting because usually it's more a case of, usually it's just like, not lone wolves, but it's usually like people who participate in the attack are usually just at the attack, as opposed to like how much planning can go into 5 extra people helping a guy do what he did, right?
Exactly. It's like people behind the scenes, which makes it feel like a bigger operation than just
it's
3 people
interesting.
going out and attacking people. It's one person, but there's obviously behind people. So, yeah.
Okay, so just thought I'd bring you that update. You guys know me, I'm always just staring at the news. Councillor Martin said to everybody, thank you all for the kind messages, comrades. Thank you. There was so much positive comments about him in the chat.
I was keeping an eye on it, and Martin, I don't know if you're still watching, but a lot of people were praising your answers when we spoke earlier and we played it on the show. But yeah, thank you for coming on if you are still watching.
And again, just like more claps for him, lots of really good comments. Martin is a truth to power seeker. What a brave guy. We love him. Now, moving on to obviously the first story, back to the Manchester attack. Giza can't say it. They have said in other channels it's about the same levels of anti-Semitic and anti-Islamic attacks. That is true. I couldn't source the exact information, but I did see obviously multiple. Did everybody see the graph that was going around yesterday about the increasing anti-Semitic? So it was like, did anybody see this? It was like a graph showing like the.
I didn't see it. I was at work till 8.
Yeah, it was basically pretty much like the graph of increase in anti-Semitic attacks and anti-Islamic attacks or Islamophobic attacks. Like they both spiked at the same time and have been slowly increasing at the same rate, and then have spiked since October 7th on both ends, and they've both just continued to climb up. And they're both at not too dissimilar rates. So yeah.
I mean, this is where the inaccurate media reporting comes in.
Yes.
Because obviously it's difficult to say this because this is literally a day after 2 people were killed, right? Maybe one accidentally by the police. At least one was straight up murdered in an anti-Semitic attack. It's very hard to be like, is the media upplaying one and downplaying the other? I don't think there's such thing as upplaying something, right? But of course, there is a media narrative which kind of does take this seriously, anti-Semitic attacks, as it should, but we don't feel the same for attacks against Muslims, especially from pundits and right-wing commentators. They certainly don't. I mean, Tommy Robinson, for example, comes on and says, Jewish people are facing an existential threat, really hyping up the fear there, right? But when that Sikh woman was, I believe, raped and assaulted, he did condemn it, but he sort of did it in a way which is, Sikhs and people are facing an existential threat. We need to do something about it. It was like, oh no, this is really, really bad. Move on. So there's a disproportionate amount of weight we give to certain violent attacks and weight to certain communities. And all we want to ask for is we give the same parity to everyone. We should, we should make sure that we give equal coverage, care for each community.
I said the same thing. I said I've seen a lot of people being frustrated, I think is the fairest word, about the amount of coverage. But I'd rephrase it as it's not that this deserves more or less coverage. It's like the amount of coverage that this is getting. It should be we should be getting more coverage on the insane increase of attacks that are happening to multiple communities, especially over the last few months. Right, we've had multiple mosque attacks. We've had multiple asylum hotels being attacked, being potentially burnt down. It was only like 4 weeks ago, right? There was that 15-year-old, I think it was, in Scotland, who was sentenced for planning an attack at a mosque, and they managed to apprehend him as he was going into the mosque. Now, we have a lot of issues with the police, but let's give them, credit where credit's due, right? They foiled something like 13 late-stage attacks or something in the last year, I think it is. So yeah, great to them. But I think even when a late-stage attack is foiled, it should get the same amount of attention as if one happened.
Yeah, because I can see what you mean, because there would be less parity on that, right? Because it didn't happen. It's almost like you have to wait for it to happen to get the media coverage.
Yeah.
And it shows a disproportion, right? If there's loads of foiled attacks, people don't hear about it and think, well, it's only the Jewish community that's specifically targeted, which is just not true, right? All minorities are attacked. But of course, I think that the media shines a spotlight. It is the hierarchy of racism again. I feel a bit dirty saying that, once again, after a disgusting, horrific attack yesterday, but I don't think we can deny the hierarchy of racism, because it's the response after an attack happens. It feels very different to when it's a Muslim.
Yeah, if anybody... Oh, you go ahead, Sarah.
No. I just wanted to just jump on that, because it is, and it's shown time and time again that when someone who is suspected of being Muslim does an attack, everyone wants to jump in on it. Everyone wants to give their opinion. Everyone wants to chess piece it and use it as an argument in a debate, or be like, this is why Islam is not compatible with the West, and blah, blah, blah. And it just becomes this over extrapolated discussion where victims end up being a footnote. But you're so right. I do think the media is so responsible for manufacturing so much anger towards people they can easily racialize. And I say this time and time again, like after 9/11, a community that was attacked a lot was the Sikh community, because people are unable to discern that Muslims aren't just Asian people. But it's always this assumption that Muslims are Asian people, and whatever, and they're the ones that they want to be racist to, and they're the ones that are responsible for all the quote unquote grooming gangs and child sexual exploitation. Like, it gets tiring. And even just listening, I was listening to you guys so intently, I couldn't help but feel so fatigued at us going through this again. This happens again and again and again, and we're saying the same things over and over. And I just wish more and more people would wake up.
Yeah, and I think what's also interesting is the difference in how we define a terrorist attack versus like a racially motivated attack or a religiously motivated attack. If anybody follows me on social media, they'll know that last week or the week before, I found a story that was just buried in the media. Only LBC and the BBC reported on it, and the reason why it was buried because the BBC headline was 8 in court after disturbance in park, and I clicked onto the article because I was specifically trying to find racially motivated crimes and attacks. The disturbance was 8 people in a park doing throwing fireworks, missiles, and stones at black families while doing Nazi salutes, while screaming "white power." And when the police were arresting them, they were doing like salutes and saying to the police that you're helping them take over the country and replace us. And only 2 of them were charged for racially motivated attacks. And again, the headline is disturbance in park.
Appalling from the BBC. Absolutely disgusting. And that's not an accident. They know exactly what they're doing. If you've got people throwing fireworks and doing Nazi salutes, then you call it a disturbance in your headline. That's I'm sorry, but that's no way it's not deliberate.
Yeah, if anybody would like to go and look at that story, just search BBC Durham park arrested, and I'm sure it'll come up at the top. But again, nobody covered it besides BBC and LBC, and both of their headlines were ridiculous. Guys, I do have another breaking news update in regard to what I was saying before. Apparently, Hamas have agreed to release all the hostages, not immediately, but it says Hamas says ready to release all Israeli captives and discuss the details of the Trump plan. They have replied saying that in this context, the movement affirms its readiness to immediately enter renegotiations through the mediators to discuss the details of this agreement. And they are agreeing to a national framework under a Arab and Islamic support, and that they will happily allow this administration, I'm guessing that ties to the Blair plan, to go ahead. Pretty big news.
I mean,
I don't know what to make of that.
Yeah, this is a complicated one, because what Michael Walker said to me earlier was like, I kind of want Hamas to agree to this deal because I'm scared about the retaliation.
Yeah.
And I understand that, but also on the flip side, it's like, but we know that Israel is trying to control all of Palestine. They know they want to get rid of all of them. So even if they agree to this deal, it might not be any different to not agreeing to it, right?
That's exactly it.
So
yeah, you're right.
You kind of think, do you think that Palestine should stand up and fight, but the power imbalance is clearly wide? I mean, Palestine cannot defend themselves. But also, I have such fatigue from these so-called deals. They always get agreed to. Then there's an agreement, and then, look, 9 times out of 10, it's Israel that breaks the ceasefire and deal. So I just think
that's why I don't know what to make of it.
Done, you know?
Exactly, because I remember before I'd even joined Turn Left, I'd guested with Lewis, and there was a deal that was made, and I said the same thing a year ago, and I said, I don't trust it, not until this was like almost a year ago. I don't trust it until I see, Israel actually do their end of the deal. Then I don't think I'll trust it. I won't trust it, because we've seen what they do. They still end up, a drone strike here and a hospital bombed here. Like, a casualty is always implicated after a deal. It's sad.
What I do hope, though, right, is as long as in the deal all the Palestinian hostages are released, it really fucking angers me when they say release the hostages. Yet there are thousands, maybe 3,000 Palestinian hostages. Some are below the age of 18.
Yeah.
Are they going to be released? And that's never in the discussion. So I think that the bare minimum for Hamas to negotiate with Israel and Trump, and maybe Tony Blair, is they need to release all their fucking hostages.
Yeah. It's specific, just to make sure I'm being specific. It says it agrees to hand over the administration of Gaza to an independent body of Palestinian technocrats based on Palestinian national consensus and Arab and Islamic support. Issues will be addressed to a comprehensive Palestinian national framework in which Hamas will participate and contribute responsibly. That could be Israel's get out of deal card.
Yeah.
But yeah,
frustrating.
So there's that update for you and everyone. I'm sure we can do 1 or 2 more comments after this. Just on, obviously, Manchester Synagogue. The selective outrage, obviously we've already been talking about this a lot, but it's absolutely true and it's frustrating.
Yeah, and it feels kind of gross to say this right now, given the veracity of the crime. But we have to talk about it, don't we? Because all the acts against Muslims, we're not doing them a service. We're doing them a disservice if we don't talk about it. So David Mackey, you're right. The selective outrage is obvious, and we've seen it across the media and across political parties. The way racism is treated in the Labour Party when it comes to anti-Semitism, or when it comes to anti-black racism, like Diane Abbott, it's on a different planet, right? It's on a different universe.
And what's also frustrating as well, and I've said this so many times, I don't know if I've said it on here, is that if that hate march went ahead a few weeks ago and you replaced every time they said the word Muslim or Islamic with Jew, Jewish, Judaism, it would have not even been allowed to go ahead, or it would have been broken up or disrupted. And this is what is frustrating. And I'm not trying to say, this isn't even making a point about how, it's Jewish people who've got special treatment. It's not. It's the fact that, like, Muslims are so dehumanized.
Exactly.
It's so normalized.
Special treatment, because
it's so normalized.
Play racism, right? You can only downplay it.
And I think hatred towards Muslims is so normalized now in everyday discourse that it's now no longer a shock for someone to say something dehumanizing of the Muslim community, or to say that Muslims don't deserve to be in this country. Like, it is tiring, and it is, the selective outrage is so apparent.
What I'd love people to do when they go on, like, panels on, like, national TV and go on Question Time or whatever it might be, is take some of these speeches and replace the word Muslim with Jew, because even though I hate to weaponize, obviously, the history of what has happened to the Jews, but this is what we are taught in school. This is the moments of history that we're supposed to be remembered like never again, right? And I think it is fair for anybody in this country, because I connected history to it, to invoke that. And when you're talking about any group of people, if you replace that group of people's names with Jew, Jewish, or even any other group that's been demonized in that way, and tell me if that sounds right. Tell me if that doesn't sound like something that's happened before. It should not be allowed to be said and go ahead in the way that it has.
Yeah, but you've got the likes of, David Menzer, who say he got asked directly, like, how do you feel about the fact that this genocide is happening when Jewish people have literally been through a genocide themselves? He said, I feel pride in what's happening to Palestinian people. So you have people who literally will say, we recognize that Jewish people are going through what they're going through, but we do not recognize that there is suffering in any other community. So David Menzer, actual idiot, mate. Twat.
Oh, I hate David Menzer so much.
That guy needs to be blasted to the moon, doesn't he?
Yeah. Former head of Labour Friends of Israel. Okay, on to the last comment. It was about Penny Mordaunt. This is Penny Mordaunt, member of the party who has MPs repeating the AS cultural Marxist theories. And the reason why I selected this comment from Edward is it's the right wing are actually the ones who perpetuate conspiracies and rhetoric like this, which actually all of it goes back to the roots of anti-Semitism, cultural Marxism, we are being replaced, great replacement theory. All of this type of rhetoric ties back into deep anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. And even you've got people like Suella Braverman, I think she was probably one of the first mainstream people to say this a few years ago in Parliament. And she's married to a massive Zionist Jewish guy, right? And you almost like, when you try and critique it, it almost like doesn't make sense that she's married to a Jewish Zionist and then she's out there saying cultural Marxism, which you can literally just see the first line on Wikipedia is like, this is an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, right? It's so frustrating, and I just find it weird and ironic and twisted.
It's because these people do not give a damn about anti-Semitism.
They don't care.
It's what it all boils down to. But I think it's so strange then in terms of Suella Braverman's situation, because her husband's Jewish, and like, does he not turn around and be like, so babe, why did you use the cultural Marxism line on TV? Like, I do wonder, but I didn't know about Penny Mordaunt also repeating the cultural Marxist anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, but it goes by. And again, like people like Tommy Robinson, they will parrot the great replacement theory. Again, once again, anti-Semitic. These are really, really old anti-Semitic conspiracy theories and tropes from the elders of Zion. It goes really far back, and it was the fundamental basis to Nazi ideology.
Mm.
And then you've got, again, it's like the whole Charlie Kirk thing. Like, you can find 50 million times of him literally just saying like the most anti-Semitic things, right? And then they're lighting up the Knesset in Tel Aviv for him, not because they care, because they just want to stoke the division, the culture wars, all this type of stuff. They don't care as long as it benefits them.
And look, there's no such thing as a selective racist, right? You can't be, because this is what's strange from the right wing. They are deeply racist against all minorities, but suddenly very concerned about anti-Semitism. That doesn't work, right? Human beings don't function like that. You're racist against one, all or none, right? It is like, even if people will say, "Oh, I hate this particular group, not other groups," like the attitudes will still seep through to other groups, right? You just can't be someone like Tommy Robinson, like Lawrence Fox, or anyone else who can say the most disgusting anti-black, anti-brown, Islamophobic stuff, and then suddenly be concerned about anti-Semitism. Deep down, you'll probably find some anti-Semitic attitudes. Like, you can't divorce the different communities from each other. You cannot be a part-time anti-racist. It doesn't work.
I agree.
But then again, they don't care.
You can't be a part-time racist. That's jokes.
The irony and the hypocrisy will just go over their heads. I'll just quickly check if we've got any more comments. Okay, no, that is it for today.
Wonderful.
Well, Lewis, thank you so much for...
Thanks, Lewis.
Really good, actually, because you're providing updates as well. So Thoroughly enjoyed, even though the news wasn't particularly positive. But
I'm an absolute news geek. Yeah, no other updates since then, so nothing's come out. Weirdly enough, no one in Israeli media has reported on the Hamas acceptance, which is interesting. But we will probably have more information by Monday, and who knows, it might all just fall apart and collapse like the 20 other deals in the last 2 years.
Yeah, I probably agree with that. But if there is any more news, we're going to bring it to you on Monday, aren't we?
Yeah. Bye, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lewis.
Now, of course, I'm currently eating a comment. I'm eating Edward Sexby's
Nom nom
name.
nom.
There we go. That, of course, is all we have time for. Thank you to all our viewers who tuned in. Of course, thank you to Sarah for joining me tonight. It felt like it was so long ago since we were matched up, so it was lovely.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much, Curtis. Chris.
Remember to like the stream, and of course, if you're not a subscriber, then hit that button. If you want us to grow, then you can head over to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. There is a link to our Patreon where you can support us monthly, or follow the other link to give us a one-time contribution. Alternatively, you can become a YouTube member for just 99p. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on Monday.